What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Lost Tangent Outpost. My name is Spada. Look, I'm only a small channel, so my videos don't really tend to blow up in general. But given that it's been such a long time since I uploaded anything to the channel, the response to the Multiverse Living Roster announcement has been super positive. So I have to start by saying thank you to everyone who watched, liked, left a comment. I appreciate all of you guys. Seriously, thank you. Before we get started with the video, please make sure to drop a like in the video if you're excited about Multiverses and the living roster for it. Don't forget to check the comments once you're done with the video, and definitely let me know what your thoughts are. This series has always been a communal effort, so I definitely will be reading the comments that you guys leave behind. Alright, so let's get started. There are a lot of things to sort out to get this prediction started. One of the most important things to start with is a question of roster size. How large do we expect the roster to be at launch? This is important because it comes down to a lot of factors. How many properties do they want to represent? How many of each property will likely appear? How many characters do they want to hold back for DLC or seasonal updates? So considering that, how do we even begin? I've been racking my brain trying to come up with a surefire way to do this, like a way that doesn't take too much explaining, can be really easily broken down into episodic bits, and what I've come up with is, okay, well, I'll get to that in a bit. Let's rewind to a few seconds ago when I mentioned the size of the roster. That's where I believe it makes the most sense to start, and that's where we generally do start the living roster anyways. We do need to keep in mind that there will have to be some limit to the quantity of characters. Now, let's analyze the roster that we have so far, and hopefully that'll help us figure this out. As it stands, we have 15 characters that we're expecting from the game. That's 13 characters that have been officially announced and 2 characters that we're pretty sure are going to make it in. Of those 15, we have 1 representative from Adult Swim, Rick Sanchez, 1 representative from Warner Brothers Pictures from Lord of the Rings, Gandalf, 1 representative from HBO, specifically from Game of Thrones, Arya Stark, 1 representative from Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny, 2 representatives from Hanna-Barbera, Shaggy, and Tom and Jerry, which I guess technically you would say 3 because Tom and Jerry are 2 different characters, but given that they exist as 1 playable character in the game itself, that's 2 characters altogether. We have 4 representatives from the modern era of Cartoon Network: Finn the Human, Jake the Dog, Garnet, and Steven Universe. And 4 representatives from DC: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Harley Quinn. Oh, and I can't forget about Rain Dog, a completely original character with his own backstory, which has a bunch of implications for the story of this game, but we don't have time to discuss all of that right now. So as you can see, Cartoon Network's modern era and DC are both heavily represented compared to the other franchises on this list. I have to believe that these other franchises should expect to get at least some more representation. And as I mentioned in the last video, there are likely to be representatives from all around the WB family of franchises, so it's possible that we could be looking at a sizable roster to compensate. But if each of the already represented franchises were to have at least 1 more, aside from DC and Cartoon Network, then I would expect us to have a little more than that. So let's say there's 4 additional slots and then some. Now there's no telling at all how many there will be, we just don't have any indications whatsoever. Based on what we do know, what we've discussed, the other leaks that we haven't discussed, and my own personal speculation, I think there are at least like 4 reasonable guesses that we could make for the size of this roster. According to what they've said, they're about 2 years deep into development. That gives them enough time to have a few characters they've already finished and are waiting to reveal, to help build up hype and promote the game. So I believe that there are at least a handful of characters that are mostly finished that they're waiting to show us, but that also makes it reasonable to believe that there's a few others that they're in the process of working on that'll still be revealed before launch. With all of that, I think it's reasonable to believe that there are at least 8 characters left to be revealed. That's not including Rick and Gandalf. Even though they haven't announced them yet, I think we're all under the impression that it's a foregone conclusion that they're coming, but there is potential that they have much more left to reveal. Some fighting games like to announce their games with less than half the roster revealed, so this is also possible. However, I do think that we have to have managed expectations going into this when we consider the overall size. Even though these developers have a lot of experience in the industry and they likely have a solid team working under them, I think it's reasonable to consider that they might be trying to keep the roster fairly small to alleviate any extra development pressure. Before I give you guys the 4 guesses that I believe are reasonable, let's talk about how we'll handle polling in this new living roster. It used to be that YouTube gave me the ability to place polls inside my videos so that I could just make it super easy and polls were quickly accessible. But that's no longer an option. I do have the option of putting polls on the channel through the community page, however, and there are a ton of websites that allow people to make quick to access custom polls. So this is how I propose we handle doing polls. There will be 3 polls that you can participate in. I would request that you choose one of them, but I can't stop you from voting in all 3. All 3 will be the same poll, just in different locations. The first poll will be the most easily accessible because all you have to do is subscribe to the channel so you have quick access to the Lost Tangent Outpost community page. That's where I'll be publishing that first poll. The next poll will be on Twitter, where you can follow me at Spada_LTO to see when the poll goes live and vote on it there. The last poll will be a poll I link in the description and the pinned comment on every living roster video. This will take you to a page where I'll have created a custom poll that pertains to the episode. I will try to have the polls up within minutes of the video going live, but it's possible that there will be delays from time to time. Alright, so with that said, here comes your first poll of the MULTIVERSUS living roster. How many characters do you expect to see in MULTIVERSUS at launch? 20, 24, 32, 40, and since I know there are some of you out there with some super unreasonable expectations, I will include a 5th option where I have the option to do so. How about 48? Alright, so make sure to go vote in one of those 3 polls. Check the pinned comment to this video, go to my Twitter, or go to the community tab of this YouTube channel once you finish the episode. Now, personally, I think the most reasonable guess is 24. That gives us a clean and even number and allows them to slowly reveal the roster at a decent rate, 1 character at a time. However, I am hopeful that we might get more. My vote is going to be for 24 since I think that's the most likely, but feel free to vote however you like. Since we're now on the other side of the first poll, now I'd like to discuss how we're going to be doing the show going forward. Once we've decided on the number of characters we feel is likely, and it's time to start trying to predict the actual characters that will fill these spots. And as we've talked about, there are a ton of franchises to pull from, not to mention the ones that are already in the roster as it stands. So here's how I think we'll be doing the show until I've filled the roster. I'm going to try and approach it by each specific IP or franchise, or more specifically, I'd like to call them logos. For instance, I'd like to do an episode about cartoon characters. These are characters that appeared from the Hanna-Barbera team on Cartoon Network when I was growing up. This includes shows like Dexter's Laboratory, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and a few others. I consider this its own brand, separate from the Cartoon Network brand that the existing representatives in the game already derive from. I'd also like to cover Warner Brothers Pictures franchises like Mad Max, Harry Potter, The Matrix, etc. Then there's the CW, and then several other logos, as I'm calling them. But I hope this makes sense. Basically, we'll do episodes based on each one of these logos. And with that, I believe we can call this the end to an episode. I think I should say going forward that I'm going to try to limit each episode to having a single poll. And this is just because I don't want to clutter you all with several polls that you have to go and find. But always make sure your voice is heard in the comments and reach out to me on Twitter. I try and reply as much as possible, so don't be shy. That said, thank you everyone for coming by today. Make sure to like this video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode and the next poll, and hit the notification bell so you can be alerted when I post a new one. Alright guys, see you in the next video. Until then, later.